Look around. It doesn't take much to see that America is currently on fire at the moment. A lot has been bubbling under the surface, and some of that agitation has finally risen to the top. If you've been keeping up with the news, then I know you're aware of what's going on. Orcas have been attacking boats and causing mayhem all over the ocean.
What did he do to make them that mad?
Actually, that happened in Europe, not America. I just want to remind everybody that killer whales are attacking boats. Maybe folks should stop polluting their waters before Free Willy frees his willy up your...
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Now back to America. It practically runs the film industry, right? I mean, after all, Hollywood is here. I'm not saying America is the only place where solid films are created, but the whole world knows Hollywood is where you want to be if you want to take your acting or writing career to the next level. It's the allure of Los Angeles, fame, and money that brings the best and brightest talent the world has to offer. And I know because, well, that's how I ended up in LA. I was offered a job to host my own television show, and I hosted that show alongside two co-hosts, but NBC Universal decided to shut it down like Matumbo in the paint after only 1 year on the air. I mean, it turns out spending $30,000 to $50,000 a day just to turn on the lights and use some oversized studio wasn't a good business model for a new network with limited viewership. And instead of just downsizing and continuing to push the product, the suits rather just shut down the boat and blame everyone working on the show like they didn't launch a new TV network during COVID with no promotion.
None of my business. It's none of my business.
Now, regardless if it failed or not, I'm still grateful for the opportunity and the experience. I never wanted to live in LA in my life. The vanity of this city just never appealed to me, but I love to create, and the opportunity came knocking with a nice paycheck, might I add. Most people, they don't even get that far. I only moved to Cali because I had a job lined up and a game plan. A lot of people move here with no game plan, and that's how they end up strung out along the way. I'll never forget the time I took a trip to LA. It was like 8 years ago, and it was for a business trip, right? I was invited out to test the game early, and don't ask me in the comment section because I don't remember. It was a long time ago. When I was on my flight, I was sitting next to this woman. Now, I passed out on our 7-hour flight from DC to LA, and halfway through that flight, I woke up to her laughing at me, and I said, I'm like, what are you laughing at? And she's like, oh, well, you were snoring really loudly. I thought it was funny. And the next thing you know, we chatting it up for the remainder of the trip. Long story short, she told me she was from Milwaukee and she was visiting DC. She took what money she had left and she decided to move to the big city of Los Angeles spontaneously to follow her dreams. Now, does this sound familiar? A woman from a small city in the Midwest that nobody cared about until Giannis Antetokounmpo arrived, and now she's moving to the big city to follow her dreams. I said, who are you staying with? She said, oh, I don't know. I know some people out here, so I was hoping they would let me crash on their couch for a while. And I'm like, you didn't ask? She goes on to say, no, I'm a free spirit. And I'm like, well, alrighty then. Plane landed. I wished her luck. But as you can see, all these years later, I still wonder how she's doing. I hope she's okay, man. After all, being an actor or a writer isn't as glorious as it might seem. Let's do some critical thinking here. Are there more Denzel Washingtons, or are there more gangsta number 3s? Are there more Margaret Robbies? Or are there more nobodies doing extra work? The answer to both questions would be the latter. But because we as humans tend to only celebrate the few, we often forget about the many. I mean, how many times have you heard about the struggling actor in LA just getting by bussing tables at Denny's? That's a real thing, and it's because the average actor isn't some major star. Now, I'd imagine that's everyone's end game, but because some people don't make it that high up the mountain, they have to settle for smaller roles to pay the bills, which also means you want every dollar that you're owed. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, why don't they just get a more stable job in a different field? And I understand where you're coming from, but not everyone wants to be a coder or a plumber or an architect or a doctor. Let people do what they want so long as it's legal. Now let's shift our focus to making sure said people are properly compensated, because I mean, you like to be properly compensated for your job, right? Right. So let's talk about the recent writers and actors strike going on in LA and why it matters. Now, for those of you living under a Dwayne Johnson, what? The SAG and the WGA are unions that represent the writers and actors. The writers have been on strike since May, and the actors recently joined them July 2023. Now, this is a big deal because usually it's either one or the other that's on strike, and rarely ever is it both. They're looking to work out a new deal that sees better distribution of the wealth in Hollywood. I mean, after all, mega corporations such as Disney have seen an 11% increase in profit year over year, with them netting $28 billion just in the last fiscal year alone. Now, this is insane info to know, knowing that I saw an article about how one of the writers on She-Hulk, the one that wrote the Daredevil episode, basically the only one anybody even liked, made less than $400 in residuals on that episode. And even more insane to know that Disney's CEO is on record saying that expectations to be paid just aren't realistic. This guy made billions. And apparently also he's on record saying that he'd prefer to pay voice actors in Disney coupons. I ain't gonna lie, man. These billionaires, they wildin'. So why does this all matter? Well, I found 3 reasons. The first of which, and probably the most obvious, there will be a content slowdown if this thing does not get worked out. Escapism is a major part of American culture. It's the reason many of you haven't accomplished any of your goals. I mean, between music, movies, TV, video games, and sports, it's easier than ever to get distracted. All that is about to stop when the content starts drying up. We've got a few major film releases left in the year, but beyond that, I don't know what things are gonna look like in 2024, 25, 26. I've seen several reports of shows and movies that were supposed to drop next year. They've stopped production already. I mean, that Spider-Man sequel to Across the Spider-Verse is looking spooky, man. And I'm actually curious to know if this affects video games. Does anyone in the comments know if the voice actors for video games fall under the same union for actors? Let me know in the comments below. What I do know is that the lack of new content will give you time to think about how you can improve your life. Who are we kidding? You're still gonna procrastinate. Nothing new is coming, so instead, you're just gonna probably dive into your backlog of shows and games you got. Reason number 2 this matters, and this is more so of a warning. I know from speaking to many of you in my chat at twitch.tv/TheBlackHokage that many of you have aspirations of acting, writing, or voice acting. And I'm letting you know that opportunities might finally present themselves, and while this strike goes on, you better not take them. Crossing that picket line is a no-go regardless of what field you work in. That is known as being a scab. You will get used by these corporations and then you will get spit out. And the worst part is that once the dust settles, all the union actors are not going to mess with you. You'll essentially get yourself blackballed. And the same goes for content creators. If you are a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer, don't be shocked if someone reaches out. Please don't fall for this trap. Not only can you get yourself blackballed, but the people will hate you too. I've already seen it with a TikToker. This dude proudly said he didn't give a F and he's still gonna be taking Hollywood deals during this strike. And now he's getting a lot of hate from his viewers and fans. He's losing followers, his comment section is toxic, and he had to delete the video. But you know how the internet is. They download and re-upload because they're gonna hold you accountable. I promise you, just listen. Just don't cross the picket line. It will help you in the long run, I promise. And last but not least, this strike is important because it's reminding everyone to make sure they get what they believe they are worth. Now, I'm not sure if there's a correlation, but UPS workers are about to go on strike in case you haven't heard. They're trying to make a deal for improvements, and if a deal isn't struck by the end of July 2023, you can expect your Amazon packages to be arriving a tad bit slower, okay? UPS is another corporation that raked in record profits, yet you hear stories of their drivers being overworked and they're living out of their cars. I love to see the anarchy. I won't lie. I love to see people wake up and realize there are strength in numbers. You don't have to take this stuff. And I hope even more people get inspired, because the reality of America right now is that the cost of living has gone up, inflation is through the roof, and CEOs are raking in unheard profits, and people want a piece. So to that, I say, make sure you get your piece, because Lord knows that Luffy will never find one piece. But hey, I'm just saying. Now, if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and check out my video on Ja Morant. Click the card on the screen because I think I provided a unique perspective on what's going on with the NBA's #1 ranked cowboy, Ja Morant. Because guns, like you get it, like he shoots guns. Pew, 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 pew.